Uh-oh. It's getting there. Nearly time. Choo-choo! Let's begin! Trainer VR is a wooden toy train building game. There is no campaign or challenges to complete. The whole game is simply a sandbox mode. You can play the game with either the DualShock, 1 move controller, or 2 move controllers. I found that the DualShock was the better way to play, as you can use the analog sticks to move around freely. With the moves, you can only teleport, which makes lining up your position in the world quite time consuming. You will be moving around a lot, so the DualShock is the best method to move around more efficiently, especially as there is also a teleport button included on it. Oddly though, you can't move sideways with the analog stick, as left and right is mapped to snap turning. It doesn't take too long to get used to only being able to move forwards, but turning accidentally can still happen from time to time. You can play the game seated or while stood, thanks to the inclusion of a height slider that is found in the options menu. You have 2 locations to let your imagination go wild in. One is a plain white area and the other is a Wild West setting. The plain white area is basically the beginner's area, as the Wild West place has terrain that you must build over and under, which is the closest thing you'll get to a type of challenge in this game. To place tracks down, you simply grab them from the menu and they appear in the world. They are physics based, so there is a bit of lining up to do, but 2 tracks will slot together quite easily and fluidly if they are pretty close to one another. There's quite a few different parts that you can use, and you can even build bridges and platforms for tracks to be elevated in the air from. It can be a bit fiddly to make elevated tracks though, as you will need to place supports underneath. It would have been great if some tracks came with these supports straight away, but on the other hand, it does make the track placing element of the game far more realistic. If you don't want an object you have spawned, you place it in the rubbish bin. It's easy, but as you keep playing, the lack of a button you can press to delete something that you are holding does become missed. The lack of it just makes correcting errors a bit of an effort. Trains are also physics based and will snap onto the track. To make them go, you simply press the X button when your controller is over them, and to make them stop, you do the same. Unfortunately, there is only 2 trains that you can play with, which is a bit surprising for a game centered around trains, but they can have different types of carts placed on the back, such as a passenger carriage and different types of cargo holders. You can actually manually place cargo in these too, which is a nice little touch, especially as once again, they are physics based. Smoke comes out from the train's chimney, which is visually quite nice, thanks to everything having a sharp image. The only real issue with the graphics here are the textures found in the Wild West area, in particular the ground ones. They do appear slightly stretched and lack the same amount of detail found on each of the game's objects. As well as quite a few track pieces, there are also scenery objects that you can place down. These include buildings. Some of these are in sections and can be snapped onto one another. There are also vehicles, animals, and humans. These don't actually move along a path though, instead they are static and are really only for show. Although there doesn't look like many objects to spawn in for menus, some do have alternate textures, like for buildings and humans. The animals can also be changed too. Some of these scenery objects can also be activated, like crossings and lampposts. You can activate them yourself in exactly the same way as you make the trains move, but you can also have the trains actually activate them for you when they pass over a button. This is where the game's logic system comes into action. But don't worry, it is so incredibly easy to use. All you do is press the button and then select the object you want it to activate. It really is that simple. The game also encourages some mindless fun, as you can crash trains into one another, which results in an explosion, and you can also set off explosions wherever you want, thanks to the use of TNT. You can activate it yourself, or you can link it up with logic. The explosions do have an impact on each of the object's physics engines, so watching everything fly off and make a mess is a visual treat, but just like for real world, you will have to do some cleaning up afterwards, as there is no undo and redo button. But you could always save the game before the explosion in one of the game's many save slots, to prevent having to clean up your world. As this is a sandbox game, there is obviously not a rough amount of time it will take to complete. I'm not 100% sure if there is a limit to what you can build in each of these areas though, as there is no visible thermometer that gets filled. I would imagine the limit is massive, as guidance would be very necessary if building limits were low. Trophy wise, The list is about what you would expect from this type of game. A lot are rewarded for simply interacting with objects such as starting your first train and connecting two track pieces together. One is rewarded for entering the Wild West area for the first time, and another is for turning on your first light. The only problem trophies here are two grindy ones, which are rewarded for placing down 1000 tracks and then 10,000 tracks. Personally for me, they're not a massive issue, as I simply wouldn't attempt 10,000, as there is no platinum here, but if there was, their inclusion wouldn't have been welcomed. Trainer VR has actually been made by a very small team that only consists of 4 people, and I have to say, I'm quite impressed. It's actually quite a solid sandbox game overall, although some improvements could really make this game perfect, such as being able to move sideways and being able to delete objects in your hand rather than having to place them in the trash can. It would make the whole creation process so much quicker. There isn't a massive amount of objects here, but there is enough to let your imagination run wild, and I can't wait to see the complex track designs that people come up with, and I'm sure many will have a bit of fun with the TNT. And that's what this game is all about, just feeling like a kid again. I did lose track of time when playing, and it really did bring back memories from my childhood. What you see is basically what you're getting here, and if it looks appealing to you, I'm pretty sure you will have a fun time here.
No big explosion. That made me jump again. It doesn't go off instantly, does it?
As you guys know by now, I love seeing games that allow you to be creative in a virtual space, and this game does just that, and is well made overall. It just needs an update or two to really perfect the creation process. If you found this review helpful, please give it a thumbs up, and subscribe for more PSVR content.